I hear desktop audio capture. I hear this. Yeah, all right, sweet. Couple people in the chat. It's been a while since I've had to speak extemporaneously alone. So we're gonna see how this goes. I see open chat. What is that? What's a stream? Oh god, I really need a coffee. That's mostly why I was late. I say as if I have not been on time, as if I've been on time for like a single one of these things. So tomorrow I'm going to be on Wick TV, and it's a howdy. I'm going to be on Wick TV, and most of my streams there have been politically focused or economics focused, right? Stats and other BS. That'll be tomorrow. I think I'm going to be arguing with Lactoid TV, who I've been on, I want to say, 2 panels with before. He's a lot of fun, interesting guy, lawyer. There will be Dev from Short Fat Otaku. Alex Mercado? No, Andrew Mercado, who I have no information about. I've never seen him before. Maybe we'll look him up tonight. And then obviously there's Wick TV. Apparently Destiny was in the cards. Destiny, Stephen Bonnell was in the cards. I've only debated him once. That was for the that was the first politics stream I did, which was the Luigi debate. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about fraud and a bunch of weird situations going on in Minnesota. And basically, this is a prep stream because I had to say, listen, I need the ability to go over actual statistics. I need I need names of people. I need numbers. I need totals as far as what kind of fraud was suspected versus convicted versus given restitution for. So that's basically what I'm here to do today is I want to do a little bit of research. I do not want to rely on the charity of citizen journalists, though they may be. Because I'm mostly just interested in when I get any kind of interest in like a politics stream, unless it's kind of like generic culture war BS, which I generally hate anyways. My interest is the ways in which people twist statistics, twist numbers, twist metrics, we'll say. All three of those are basically the same thing, but I like the phrasing of metrics. Like to twist metrics in order to avoid responsibility. I have an interest in good governance. I have an interest in the metrics that people use to figure out whether good governance is actually happening. And I guess, no, that's not quite right. I have an interest in people lying. That's really interesting to me. When people start lying, and if I can detect that they're lying, that really excites me. Because, for instance, I'll be in a meeting with a few freelancers, or I'll be the freelancer, and I'll be talking about game design. And I haven't had a conversation like this in a while, but they stuck with me. Where we would be talking about some dissatisfaction with the game mechanic. Like this, it feels like this guy doesn't do enough damage. It feels like this guy isn't satisfying to play. Like this character class, the Ranger, isn't fun to play in D&D. And somebody might misspeak and be imprecise and say, I feel like it doesn't do enough damage. And somebody will jump up and say, the Ranger actually does this if you take this damage per round based on these estimates about how often you're going to hit and this ideal action rotation, then actually the Ranger is really good as far as damage is concerned, so there's nothing to worry about. While ignoring the core criticism, which is this guy doesn't feel fun to play. People I'm going to be arguing with tomorrow are very. They like this style of argumentation, and it's very frustrating. So I figured I needed to do at least a little bit of prep. So, not my usual content, not what I'm usually up to. Levels in Cleric will fix any class? Yeah, sure. No, that's fun as far as conversations go. So I don't know if this is going to be interesting. What I normally do is not politics focused, but I haven't been doing a lot of D&D focused stuff anyways. But I've been thinking, I've been building tools for the last year between my website, between different RPG tools that are mostly ready to go. And I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that. Anyways, how have you folks been? I think it's been over a year since I've streamed last, so this feels weird. There we go. Sorry, I had a little bit of. I can hear again now. We're watching lore on Trench Crusade. What do you? There's a channel out there that I don't know if it's an AI voice or not, but it does sound very nice. That I think is just like a fantasy future or something like that. Fantasy lore goes over the Trench Crusade lore. I thought Trench Crusade was pretty interesting. Whereas I thought I was going to go into it. Immediately, it gets embroiled in controversy because people start panicking and using it as a culture war abstraction right away. Or sorry, not abstraction, a proxy for culture war. And I was not happy. So I'm going to be on Wick TV tomorrow, and let me go over his statements. I'm going to see if I can find any of this shit that he said so far. Asmat has a formidable voice. Even. I have a couple things to get to. I guess I want to be prepped for objections, my overall claims. I gotta check the premise of the debate again. Let's see here. I want to get a couple of. I got to figure out my premise, my claims, questions I probably ought to ask the other side. This is something that I don't do often enough in debates, so I do poorly. I think if I'm getting into, I'm an hour in and I'm just trying to hammer my point the exact same way, or maybe not the exact same way. Like I'm using a slightly different language to hammer the point that I was trying to make earlier because acting like the other person just hasn't heard it correctly. And that can be entertaining, but I think the conversation basically stalls out at that point and it's not fun for me, so I don't know why I do it. And what I'm hoping is if I write some questions down for the other side in advance, it's going to be a little bit more useful. Guardrails, this is another important thing is there's some crap that people get up to that I really, really hate. in these debates. And the one I already mentioned earlier, which is people will mention if somebody speaks out of turn about a metric, then people will hyper focus on the metric rather than the core objection. We have ignoring core objection in favor of ignoring core objection in favor of metric. And then this is another annoying one that I have to deal with. Basically, hey, Bradford Walker, how's it going, buddy? Another really annoying one is people will start asking me metrics that I know, one, they do not know. I'm confident on this now. If you make a claim, somebody else, if they can't address your claim, they will have like a counter metric, right? They'll kind of like a stats check you. It's like a speech check in a fucking Fallout game. I gotta start cursing so much, stop cursing so much. Where they say, but, do you know? All right, you're claiming that there's this amount of money in fraud. Claiming this amount of money in fraud in the whole of Minnesota. Do you know how many steps these fraudsters supposedly took yesterday? Now, that's a ridiculous example, obviously, but follow with me for a moment. If you don't know I know that they don't know the number of steps that these people took yesterday. I know that it's not relevant to the point that I just made. I know that whether I did know it or didn't know it, it wouldn't change the point that I just made. It wouldn't change the outcome of the point that I just made or the inference that I'm drawing from it. And if I did know it, it wouldn't change this other person's mind. So I don't think I can broadly just call this bad faith. Well, sorry, it is bad faith. I don't think that's a specific enough descriptor of it, but I don't know what that specific word or term would be. So we're just going to call it speech checking for bullshit stats. Immediately after saying I need to stop cursing so much. Well, we're giving up on that for this stream. Because it is, of course, really annoying. I had this happen when I was talking with, I think, Kalinda. Yeah, Kalinda is like not a Hassan orbiter, but like a Lonerbox orbiter, I think. And I love her, to be clear, right? She's a very nice lady. She's fun to speak with. Bradford Walker says, good doing no Brodom article. What the hell is that? I don't know what this new acronym is. I have BroSR and I have BroXT. I don't have room in my tiny cave Jew head physiognomy that to keep another acronym in here. It's not going to work. And who else do we have? We have Mr. Goats. I don't know who that is. That actual demagogue? Full Metal Dragon. I remember you. Hello. I think Shelly is in here. And Durian the Sleepy. Hello to you too. Making a new Bronstein scenario. That's exciting. Hell yeah. I believe that not Broser. What am I thinking of? Not Broser. Sorry, Umbros. Umbros, the Hollow Earth Bronstein that B-Dub 1776 came up with. I'm going to be running a Bronstein, session Bronsteins, I believe bi-weekly, very, very soon. I'm thinking second or third week of January. I have to figure out what releases I'm doing first. It's a Gundam inspired scenario. That's very fun. You should hit me up with that because I'm going to be running a Bronstein for the current Lancer campaign that I'm doing. So I'm hype about that. Or else speech checking for bullshit stats. I don't know how to get around that, by the way. So somebody asked me, what was I talking about beforehand? Kalinda said, yeah, I was chatting with Kalinda, I think, about Somalians in Minnesota, and we're just using it like a broad ethnic categorization here. I'm not talking about every single person that belongs to this ethnic group. If you require me to make that kind of caveat to begin with, I can't say what should happen on YouTube. It's just very fucking annoying, so I'm not paying attention to that. Linda brought up, while I was chatting with her, I had heard a headline and I'd later looked up, but I didn't have all the stats right in front of me, that the mayor's race in Minneapolis was thrown by different communities of Somalians within the interesting uh, different communities of Somalians within Minneapolis had a kind of tribal hatred of the Somalian who was running for mayor, and this actually flipped the vote. And there are tons of claims about this, tons of articles about this, basically within these different tribes, of course, because, Western powers throughout Africa and the Middle East basically drew random squiggles over these territories that didn't actually comport with, you know, tribal lands or tribal territories, which were, of course, in flux to begin with, or without regard for whether these people were nations unto themselves, and caused a lot of conflict therein. Somalia is no exception, right? There's Somalia and there's Somaliland, which are apparently two different countries in this within this broad territory that we're bombing constantly. And I made the claim that yeah, there was some kind of a tribal, ethnic hatred, not hatred, feud, we could say, some kind of tribal feud that basically threw this mayor's race against within this broad ethnic group, this tribal feud within the subdivisions of this ethnic group through the mayor's race because this guy Omar Fateh was not of the appropriate tribe within the broader classification of Somalians. And immediately the question was from Kalinda was, so I make the claim, tribal feud, Rose election for Omar Fateh. Because we're having a broader conversation about cultural compatibility, and I think if you have like a really tight ethnic in group, that makes it difficult for you to assimilate with broader American culture, which is obvious on its face. If you're not dishonest, you would just acknowledge that, even if you disagree with any inferences that your opponent drew from that. That's just obviously the case. And so I got a counter that said, okay, well, how do you know what percentage Somalians are of Minneapolis? What percentage of the population of Minneapolis are Somalians? And then the thing that Kalinda gave up when I was chatting with her was immediately she goes back and says, like, listen, they're just like this tiny group. Normally, what people, if they're being clever when they do the speech check, what they're not doing is they're not giving away the game of what their own position is. They're just kind of casting doubt on yours. What is the speech check? What is the speech check? Cast doubt without actually making a claim. I should sequence this better. What percentage of the population of Minneapolis are Somalians? Kalinda gives the game away, says, hey, I think it's just this tiny percentage. I don't have the stats right in front of me, but I'm still making the argument, like, okay, even if it is tiny, and I'm not sure that that's the case, but I'll just take your word for it, like, even if it is tiny, that can still throw an election, of course, because all you have to do is, if a race is like, if you're down to the last 5 points of a race, which, because it's so close and you're down to these last 5 points, and this one community makes up about 5% of, like, let's say the voting population, the people who are actually voting, Then the fact that they're a tiny minority doesn't actually change the fact that they can still throw the election. Obviously, like, come on. Obviously. Turns out that's not the case. Percentage of Somalians in Minneapolis, I believe, for something like I think they make up something like 100,000 out of 400,000. Now, Kalinda didn't know this. I didn't know that Kalinda didn't know this. But the fact that Kalinda didn't know this opponent doesn't know the answer, but doesn't reveal that they don't know the answer. The correct answer has no bearing on my opponent's opinion. It's not part of their. Oh, I saw. That's weird. Got tribe checked. Oh, quick test. I think it got in. I think it went through. I didn't think that it got auto moderated. I don't really have. I'll have it show me moderation activity, but I don't think that there's any kind of. I don't think that there's any kind of moderation on there that's going to mess with you. But hello, Colby. Colby, are you part of my? Are you part of my community? Are you part of Wix? Or how else did you? How did you get here? How did you find me? Yeah, I don't think that anybody did. I think the user just retracted it, so it had nothing to do. And actual demigod. Hey, there. How's it going, buddy? Demigod, you should jump into VC because I need assistance, and you helpfully volunteered yourself to assist me. Oh, shut the door. You helpfully volunteered yourself to assist me, so I'm going to request your assistance. Oh, no worries, no worries. Now I'm in VC in Azure Creativity, which I think anybody can join. Probably 90% of you, probably all of you. Probably all of you are inside my Discord community. If you're here, I'm literally just in general chat. Hey, buddy.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you. Thank you for knowing how to use a microphone.
Sometimes I ask myself that question, but I'm glad it's working this time around.
But my favorite part of my favorite part of all Wick TV call-ins are where people just jump in. They're using their phone for the first time.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think you debated someone that was like that. The first time I saw you was about the Charlie Kirk one, and one of them was very mad in the parking lot.
Sorry, in a parking lot?
It was the Charlie Kirk debate. It was about I don't know if conservatives were too pissed about it or something or that another.
Oh, you mean like a person was in the parking lot, or I was like
one of the debaters was in a parking lot and he was getting super pissed at you, but he was in a parking lot, so he for sure came off as looking insane.
I think that was Dr. Darko, if I'm recalling correctly.
I have no clue. I don't know.
And he was insane. It's coming back to me now. And like
He was
occasionally
yelling.
just block these out of my mind.
He was yelling, and it was really funny because he was just in front of a auto zone.
There's something about screaming inside of your car that just makes you inherently unhinged, like something's wrong with you.
Yeah, it's pretty good. The phone has been a really good design. Um, so what do you need help with? Yeah, I was summoned.
Yeah, so you volunteered yourself to assist me. So what I'm going over now is basically what I'm going over now is what I want to prep for tomorrow. I want to make sure like I'm looking at the correct stats, I'm looking at the correct metrics, and I'm prepared. I'm giving myself some guardrails for the conversation, or like stuff that I'm not allowed to chimp out at, and stuff that I am allowed to chimp out at. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, what are the really bad faith tactics? I'm gonna disappear off the camera for a second, but I can still hear you. I have my ear.
Sure, and this is touching on what I already mentioned in DMs. That New York Times article is very nice, and of course, the links in the New York Times articles, those are important too. If there's a point that you would especially like, I would recommend reading the whole New York Times article word for word because there's some really funny things in there. Um, but I think, well, what are you wanting to focus on? Are you wanting to focus on the fraud that has already been found, or the daycare bullshit?
Well, those are mixed together a little bit. There are a few daycares that apparently got caught, got licensed, or sorry, had not their license taken away, but did have violations. There are claims that there's so many loopholes within the daycare system that they estimate the fraud to be very high, but they have difficulty proving it beyond a shadow of a doubt or beyond reasonable doubt for certain issues. Okay, let me start speaking in specifics.
Yeah.
One really obvious example of fraud would be if you're billing for reimbursement on days that the daycare is closed, for instance. If you're doing that, you're trying to get reimbursed for days that the daycare is closed, that's really obvious fraud. And some of them did get caught on that basis. However, if I say that, 'cause I think this is going to come up during the debate, is whether or not is the claim that there's no kids inside. I'm not addressing that like at all. I don't think that's the case. I'm not doing it on the base of like. So here's my claims.
Yeah,
My
let's
claim.
start what you're trying to prove, I guess. I'm wondering.
So for my claims, we're looking at things like I don't need to make this like a subtask or something. We're just going to go down the line. Inflating the number of children represented at these attending these facilities for reimbursement is fraud.
Okay. Um, I would have to look up. When is this debate again? Wednesday?
It's tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Okay. I suck at multitasking. Uh, give me one quick second.
No worries. So we have inflated the number of children attending these facilities for reimbursement. That's fraud. Billing for days on which a daycare is closed is fraud. Some of there are loopholes within the. I mean, the nature of the crime of fraud. This is a big one. This is one that's probably going to be a through line throughout the debate. But the nature of fraud is that it's sort of inherently easier to cover up by virtue of it being possible to begin with. Or, sorry, not to cover up, but to get away with. Because how do you prove that somebody intentionally defrauded another person rather than somebody made a mistake? It has to be like really blatant and really obvious. And so people can do things that are wrong that don't, that can still be And people can do things that don't even necessarily imply criminality to begin with, but would be necessary if they were committing fraud. So here's a good example. You have to keep records or loopholes, records, attendance records, right? Now, if attendance records are handwritten, you can make them illegible. You can make them illegible. You can destroy them, which I guess is another way of making them illegible. They can be destroyed. They could be missing, right? Somebody could break into your facility and steal your records because they're incredibly valuable. Then that is a prerequisite for fraud, but doesn't prove fraud. Go ahead.
Well, let me ask, what is the prompt for the debate tomorrow? Like the official, prompt?
I'm looking right now. I said something pretty fucking terrible the way. I need somebody to argue that Waltz/the DNC turned a blind eye to the fraud in Minnesota, or something close to that. It'll be me and Lactoid versus Dev and Andrew Mercado.
Oh, that's easy. So my whole stance is, and I don't know if you'd agree with this, the daycare stuff, at least as it stands right now, is a huge red herring. There's a massive amount of fraud that has already been uncovered. People have already been convicted. There's a lot of fraud already, like, confirmed. The daycare stuff could go either way. Sure, to a certain extent that state organizations are investigating daycares, it's sort of a we investigated ourselves and found no wrongdoing thing. But also Nick Shirley's video, pretty easy to fake. So it's kind of a wash. It's kind of a wash for me, and I suspect that's what's going to be the focus for your opponents, because that's easier to argue against, because it kind of is a wash in my opinion.
Yeah, you just personally attack him, and then it's. And I'm not even saying that to be critical. You can do. That's the downside of doing a bad job is that it's easy to criticize.
Right. And that's. I'm sorry. Can you give me one?
Yeah, no worries.
Give me like 5. Not even 5 minutes. Like 2 minutes.
No, do your thing. So loopholes, attendance records are handwritten. They can be made illegible. Illegible, destroyed, missing. I could say that this is a what, a pretext? I think this invokes suspicion of fraud. If somebody was committing fraud, so this invokes suspicion of fraud. If somebody was committing fraud, they would do this. However, it doesn't inherently itself prove fraud. It doesn't prove fraud beyond a reasonable doubt. You have to make a ton of inferences. And here's the thing. This kind of cooking the books in this manner destroys a significant amount of evidence that's otherwise difficult to come by. So if I say, I'm going to charge you guys, I mean, you can think of this for anything, right? I'm going to charge you for, you give me a project, I'm a freelancer, you hire me on, and I'm charging you for the number of hours worked. And part of our agreement is that I have to include a bunch of like timestamps or how do I put this? I have to take I'm a remote worker and I have to take video of myself working. Now, in the process of me working, when I hand you the video of me working for my 100 hours, my 100 hours build for 2 weeks, I bill you 100 hours for 2 weeks, and I hand you a video that's 100 hours in duration. However, the video itself is heavily corrupted. The frames that are working kind of have like that staticky, blurry CTV, losing signal appearance to them. They're all wavy. You can't really tell if I'm working or not by virtue of the video. Now, that doesn't prove that I built you for 100 hours. It does imply it. But more importantly, the only way, like, me destroying that evidence or corrupting that evidence inflates the cost of proving that I did something wrong.
I am back, by the way.
Hey,
Sorry if I missed anything.
no worries. You would have to, just briefly, I'm going to finish one point. You would have
Yeah, go
to
for it.
post somebody outside, do a stakeout. You have to post somebody outside my home and compare the hours that I say I'm working with what I'm actually doing, right? So they could peek in my window if I'm playing video games that I'm not working. If I say that I'm working at 4 p.m. on Sunday, but in fact the person posted outside my house sees me leave and go to Starbucks and purchase a hooker in Dallas, then that's clearly not me working. But in order to do that, now you have to hire an investigator, right? We have a limited number of these. We have limited funds for actually prosecuting this crap. So a lot of people are just not going to pursue it. I think this was actually stated as one of the reasons. I should find a source for this claim, but I think this was stated as a reason for why a lot of people did not investigate this further within the government. It's just, okay, well, we actually did do a few stakeouts at these locations. The 9 that were charged with fraud. They just compared the number of kids actually going in to the number of kids that were billed for, and they were nowhere fucking close. They were nowhere fucking close. But those are the lengths that you have to go to in order to actually prosecute these people because they're cooking the books. Sorry, go ahead. I'm gonna pin my other thoughts. Go ahead, Demagogue.
Oh, I was just looking up more info real quick. Um, so if the claim is that the state of Minnesota failed to act, um, again, the news article I showed you is really good stuff. I'm trying to gain access to a oversight commission by Minnesota's Department of Education that kind of admits as such. Um, but yeah, I think you can make a very strong argument that accusations of racism combined with threats of lawsuits very much made the
Oh, my Discord just
it
stopped
wasn't
responding.
until the
Oh,
federal
there we go.
government got involved that the state was willing to cooperate.
That one seems pretty cut and dry, but unfortunately, that's something that screws me up. So I'm going to put in guardrails here. This is something that screws me up. I am not allowed. I'm just going to put. I am not allowed to chimp about the following. Simple one. Claims that seem obvious to me. I'll give myself an out until we go like say 2 levels deeper. Like if somebody speech checks me on a claim, I'll give them like what, like two follow-up questions? Two follow-up questions where they like claim I'll give them two more speech checks where they're feigning ignorance about the subject and not actually giving them like not revealing their claim. If they're doing the Pisco thing, where you just kind of like avoid making a claim but ask for like really pedantic specifics and metrics that nobody makes decisions that inform nobody's decisions or opinions whatsoever, but are difficult to disentangle or call somebody out on. Like I'll give them two more speech checks on that subject before screaming at them and calling them slurs. And I have the article here. Oh, sweet! You gave me the archive. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's just for the New York Times article. I'm realizing just the second, and this was what was tripping me up a couple of minutes ago. Uh, when you try to access PDF files from archive from other sources in the archive, it doesn't like it. It just gives you basically a screenshot because that's kind of what archives are. Um, but I was able to nonetheless resolve that. I will send this to you in DMs. Uh,
Very cool, because I have this online right now.
Yeah, and I'll definitely go and let's see.
The feeding our future one is tricky to me. So this is anytime that you bring up fraud that came about from about the roughly the COVID era, people very quickly just totally abandon that. Or so they minimize it by saying, "Oh, there's fraud everywhere." And
Right, but
especially
that's
when
the
it comes to
thing.
the COVID era, there's fraud everywhere.
That's the thing, though. If they had a better argument, they would be giving it. The feeding our family issue, that's like your strongest thing. The daycare stuff, that might as well not exist. And that's what I think is going to be focused on by your opponents big time because conservatives don't have as much as legs to stand on in regards to that argument. It's the feeding our families thing that's I would fixate on that pretty much.
I so specifically how I'll tell you I generally agree, and I'm probably going to agree with you, but like, how do you mean?
Well, when someone mentions Nick Shirley's video and how it would be easy to just lie in that video, just show up on different times than when Nick Shirley said he did, or the fact that that's causing people to, you know, call these daycare centers and be fucky. Sure, but what is that compared to the, at the very least, more than $1 billion of confirmed fraud, especially when the prompt is, did the state of Minnesota uh, slack off regarding to this fraud?
Yeah,
Nick
did they turn a blind
Shirley,
eye?
Nick Shirley being um, questionable, and the whole daycare saga thing being questionable, that is not relevant at all to the question posed in the prompt. And that's why I call it a red herring specifically for this, is because it's not actually relevant at all to whether or not uh, the state of Minnesota slacked off in regards to the fraud that has already been confirmed. Do you get what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
no, I totally agree. Because they'll try to say like, oh, there's this inconsistency in the video, and that's what I was talking about earlier with like the guardrails, like where people are just obviously being dishonest. It's like, well, do you know what time this specific daycare center opens up, and whether Nick Shirley was like, oh, I don't care at all. Was there did the person who ran this place get convicted for fraud? And how many millions of dollars was it? That's all you need to ask. I
Right,
really don't care about Nick Shirley.
right. For me, the Nick Shirley video could not even exist as far as the prompt is concerned. It's like that irrelevant to it. Um, I
Hmm.
will also, because I linked you the. I am so fucking terrible at multitasking. You have no idea.
Dude,
Okay, I
typing
it's
and speaking at the same time is brutal. I do,
yeah.
I'm a dungeon master, or like I'm a game referee, and I do paid sessions now as well. And still, this is one skill that I can't quite get correctly because if I'm typing something and speaking at the same time but at different speeds, I can't do either unless I slow both to a snail's pace. It's terrible.
100%. That and reading. Like having to read sources for you and also talk to you about the sources that I'm reading for you, it just unlocks me.
For real. Okay, so what's one source that you're looking at?
I'm trying to. Well, right now, I don't even know where the source I opened up was. I guess I have to just go back to it. It was the thing I linked you in DMs. Um,
This is the Office of the Legislative Auditor. This is the DOE report on feeding our future.
yes. One thing I would link. Okay, starting page 5. Honestly, reading just the conclusion on page 5, that is pretty important. Um, it details how, despite warnings of feeding our future being uh, not in compliance with requirements both before and after the COVID-19 pandemic, uh, they just weren't working on it. Um, uh, Sorry. But yeah, no, read page 5. That's a pretty good summary of what the state government found when they investigated themselves. And when the state government investigates themselves and say, yeah, you kind of slacked, I think that's pretty damning.
Indeed, indeed.
But it does specifically state that fear of litigation and negative press was something that was a contributing factor in the state's slow walking of this whole thing. And that quote actually cites something else that I need to find.
Get that. Okay, so it's on page 5 of this particular of the document about feeding our future, right? Application under federal law, MDE is responsible for conducting regular oversight of sponsors participating in CAC, FP, and SFSP. For those of you who hate acronyms, let's see. Two key oversight activities include one, reviewing and approving annual sponsor applications, and two, conducting monitoring visits and compliance
Sorry, it was.
reviews.
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
That's not the right page. It's page 13.
Page 13. Okay. Because I also have a background here that's an interesting summary on page 5 that says between September 2022 and February 2024, Department of Justice charged 70 individuals with various financial crimes related to their suspected roles in a $250 million fraud scheme. The defendants allegedly exploited two federally funded nutrition programs, et cetera, et cetera. And then let's go down to page 13, you said. Is that page
Yeah, page.
13 of the PDF or?
Yeah, that's what confused me. It is page 13 of the PDF.
But listed as page 5 on this. Okay. Despite
Exactly.
signs that Feeding Our Future might not be in full compliance with program requirements both before and after the start of the COVID 19 pandemic, NDE did not effectively exercise its authority to hold Feeding Our Future accountable to program requirements. For example, in this report, we describe how MDE repeatedly approved Feeding Our Future's annual applications despite identifying serious concerns about the organization's ability to administer federal nutrition programs, did not follow up on serious findings from its only in depth monitoring review of the organization that began in late 2018. So, huh. So way before COVID, actually.
Right, and this was only turbocharged because there's more money to get out during COVID.
Yeah,
But the
so
actual issue remained the same.
they turbo frauded COVID, but like turbo frauded, my goodness.
It's
I guess
fucked
you
up
should,
how $1 Million Extreme was in on this.
right, Sam, what are you doing, buddy? Sam, I thought you were one of us.
That'd
I'm
be
Al Shabaab's
awesome,
top
man.
guy.
That'd be yeah,
Yo.
that'd be awesome. Man.
I mean, half
What
of
is
these do
MTV?
kind of seem like something he would write.
Well, did you see the fucking in the New York Times article, the thing where a few people in the Feeding Our Families group, they tried to bribe one of the jurors with like $100,000, and it said,
It was
why?"
$120,000, and the person they sent with the bag stole like 40K out of it or 80K.
Nice, but did you see the letter that they sent with the bribe?
No, I didn't. What
It's
the?
in the New York Times article. Genuinely read the whole New York Times article. Let's see. Several defendants in the trial were found to have arranged to send a bag containing $120,000 to a juror, along with a note that read, quote, why is it always people of color and immigrants prosecuted for the fault of other people? Unquote. That's awesome. Imagine that like being attached to a note with like $120,000 in a bag. That's awesome.
Can you believe they're persecuting us for crime?
Here's $120,000.
Signed, active criminal. Like,
Yeah. Why is there $40,000 missing from this bribe? I don't know.
signed, Al Samuel.
Yeah, it was so fucking good. But yeah, no, the between the New York Times article,
It has like the
and,
ATM receipt that says $120,000, but it's like scribbled out and says 40K.
yeah. Oh no. But
There's
yeah, no,
there's like a half-eaten DoorDash order in the bag. Oh,
the money's very greasy. It just came that way. It came out of the ATM like that.
yeah, like there's like random bills missing. Some of them are half ripped up.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm
but
gonna cry.
did you go through? How much did we go through the conclusion in the Department of Education review?
Not enough. Let's see. The Department of Education. Okay, did not. Okay, because I wanted to add. What was it? Objections. COVID fraud in particular was rampant. Why focus on this? Well, here we go. Here's a response to this.
I just asked because I think I derailed it with a stupid $1 Million Extreme joke.
No, that's I totally fine. That's show business. That's good radio. Scams like as long as we can keep these multiple threads going, that's the trick. That's where I usually fuck up. So scams like feeding our future, but like secretly Pixie. Scams like feeding our future preceded COVID, as did the evidence of their obvious non-compliance and likely fraud. Right, so I'll put likely fraud there because like, oh well, were they convicted before? And it's like no, but there was obvious non-compliance. Non-compliance implies fraud, doesn't necessarily prove it, but the fact that fraud is so difficult to prove means that non-compliance should get the same amount of scrutiny that the average American citizen will get, having a $600 transfer, a single $600 transfer that's not reported to the IRS in a given year. So going back to the article itself. Or sorry, the report did not appropriately investigate complaints involving feeding our future, so people actively reported it and they did nothing, so that seems like a pretty obvious slam dunk. It did not verify information provided by Feeding Our Future prior to approving its annual applications, closing investigations, or deferring administrative actions taken in response to deficiencies MDE identified in Feeding Our Future's operations. No additional authority would have been needed to take these steps. MDE had the authority and the obligation to take care or take each of these steps, regardless of any lack of detail in law or USDA guidance, and regardless of a threat of litigation or negative press. To the extent MDE believed that additional regulatory authority would have strengthened its ability to take these actions, MDE had an obligation to seek legislative action to obtain that authority. So if the claim this report makes is that under no circumstances was the correct thing to do to just like chill out and wait for somebody else to take care of it. If you thought that you could not do it alone, you needed to kick that upwards immediately, and they were wrong about that. But if they being wrong isn't enough, but if you believe that you were wrong, or sorry, if you believe that if you believe this to be the case, if you honestly came to this incorrect conclusion, then you also had a process to kick it, if you thought it needed to be kicked upstairs, there was a process for doing that. You didn't do that either. So either you're horrendously incompetent, but more likely you were just choosing not to work. No additional authority, but more broadly, the failures we highlight in this report are symptoms of a department that was ill prepared to respond to the issues it encountered with Feeding Our Future. MDE did not have a general counsel until January 2022 to advise the department on how to interpret and implement complex federal regulations and identify policy changes to bolster the department's regulatory authority, as we discuss further in Chapter 3, even after the Minnesota Court of Appeals put MDE on notice in 2017 that it needed to codify procedures in the state administrative rules. MDE neither requested changes to statutes nor pursued rulemaking authority. As we explain in Chapter 4, MDE relied on child nutrition program staff, not trained investigators, to investigate allegations of fraud. What the fuck?
They're having the daycare people investigate fraud.
Thanks for reporting this. Can you look into it more? A minimum age worker?
It's like the average work age of the.
No, I said minimum wage worker.
Oh, I thought you were asking me a question, not a rhetorical.
No, like, can you go check minimum wage worker at like a charity? Can you look further into your business's fraud for us, please? Thank you for taking this brave step forward. Can you keep going?
Yeah, that's
Let us know when you're finished.
Yeah, they're getting the daycare center folks investigating fraud.
That's incredible. So I want to look at a couple of the citations here. So page 53, they say, I want to know what they mean by did not appropriately investigate complaints involving Feeding Our Future. But while I'm getting to that, can you think of any objections just off the conclusion report that people are going to come up with? Dev, I'm expecting to be cleverly bad faith, right? I don't think he's reflexive. I think he is contrarian, but I think he puts a lot of work and artifice, into the craft of being a contrarian.
I think the best, again, it's tough because a lot of the side
you have to think like a subhuman to put yourself in these people's positions.
Right, I gotta slime it up a little. My thought is because people across the political spectrum, they tend to view the uppermost leader in any political organization as the one that's in charge and knowing of everything else going on below him. So you might get a response saying, well, what does this have to say about Walz? Like Tim Walz, even though you might have not even brought him up.
Yeah, because I haven't so far, but that's going to be
Right.
it's going to be huge, and that's going to be the argument. It's like, well, he didn't know. Prove that he knew and liked it. You have to prove that he knew and that he liked it. Otherwise, he's just like you or me, man. Like you didn't do anything.
And that's the thing. I don't think you have to prove anything from Tim Walz specifically to uh, make the case that the organizations in charge of rooting out fraud did not do a good job. I think the PDF I linked you already does pretty much all your work for you. Um, for Walls, concretely argue against how I can only concretely argue against the rhetoric that he's used since this controversy broke out. I can't prove to you that he knew anything and said, whatever. But again, I don't think you have to do that to make the point you're trying to make. Like
So
Tim
I
Walz would be right
agree.
entirely.
However, my opponents definitely aren't. So are not. So I'm not sure.
Let me see what I have for that then. I'm actually going to jump to uh, a little mini debate I had earlier today with someone else in the Wick Court about Walls specifically. Let's see.
What's his name? What's his name? Uh, Thompson. Let me find this. Casey
The
Megan.
the the thing about Walls and his rhetoric and his like trend of being like, well, what about the white people?
Oh, that
That
was a
is
little. That was pretty fucked up.
it is, and that he's been doing that multiple times. The thing about that is that it's tough because Trump is, I think, like word for word, being like, "I'm done with these Somalis," like quote unquote, and like shit like that. So even when I say, "Hey, Walls' rhetoric doesn't exactly align with someone who cares more about the actual like billions of dollars gone than uh, people being upset about it,"
Hmm.
it's Trump is such a fucking boat anchor. uh, um,
I can believe that.
yeah, let me look up because I actually had stuff. Let me ask: do you think Walls deciding not to run again for re-election, uh, is that something you are going to bring up, or are you going to let someone else do that?
Uh, I think I might.
It's
Yeah.
it doesn't it doesn't necessarily admit any wrongdoing. It just admits that hey, this is going to be uh, a scandal that I might not win. Like he could be entirely clear and still drop out of the race because of that. Yeah, I don't actually have much on Walls because there really isn't much on Walls. I don't think personally he's taken much responsibility for it. He made that funny comment about saying he took responsibility for putting people in jail when this is all like federal stuff, and his own government said, "Yeah, we were very slow
His
and
own
we
government was
actually
like reticent to prosecute to begin with.
exactly." And the people who actually did do the prosecuting, that was the feds and not the state. Um, but again, that's like just a that's just like a little needling. That doesn't actually get to the core of the point. That's just a little jab at walls specifically, and I don't know how important that is.
Yeah, so I'm not sure how I would get at him. I guess what I need to look at is how people.
Well, the annoying thing, and what I was trying to get at earlier is there is a trend where if you have bad behavior that happens by any given non-white person, it doesn't even have to be a group of them. It can just be like one black or brown person or immigrant doing something bad, just like a
Mhm.
singular one. People would get upset with it. Usually conservatives, maybe a little bit of racism as a part of that, because that's what happens. And other people will then act like that's the bigger issue,
Sure.
is the people getting pissed about the thing that happened rather than the thing that happened itself. The tricky thing about this is that Walls is that Trump very much was saying, "Hey, Somalians as like an entire category, I'm done with them." Like specifically, he says stuff like that. So it's like it's harder to go after Walls with that when you would otherwise. Somalians as like a
Double check to see if it was actually still going. Yeah, that's going to be. I mean, it's going to be tricky because I'm probably going to come out with like swinging, not paying any heed to the idea that folks are. Uh, I'm not going to be paying any heed to the idea that some folks are being over inclusive. I've grown up all my life being included in evils that had nothing to do with me and people who I was not even related to in any way or the descendants of. And so that's definitely not working anymore. Among other things because it caused in some part caused this. I think people are pretty frustrated with being taken advantage of or having their good having their good instincts or their empathetic or kind instincts taken advantage of. I think that's really pissing them off at this
I
point.
think that's actually a really good counter. Focusing on that when it comes to rhetoric, because rhetoric is going to be a big part of this conversation. Even
Yeah.
if it shouldn't be, even if it should be the matter of the facts, but rhetoric will be a part of the conversation. Um,
The matter of the facts
that's a
are
really
clear cut is the problem. Right? So
yeah. So it has to be
Wix
rhetoric.
for stream afterwards was literally going over and saying, I just don't mind that much. This other guy, this other fraudster, don't you know, got pardoned. He got a presidential pardon just now. So I don't know why people are so upset. What the fuck are you on about?
Yeah. No.
You would
It's
only say that if you were trying to minimize it. The problem with the fraud is that we do not have a national standard that is ruthlessly committed to rooting these people out and destroying them, regardless of whether they were born here or not, regardless of whether their families were born here or not, whether or not you came off the Mayflower. If you commit fraud to the scale of once you get past 7 digits, you should be denaturalized and you should be sent to a culture that's or to a country that's more appropriate for your cultural beliefs, your cultural values. Tim Waltz should be sent to Somalia. The guy who got pardoned should be sent to Somalia. If piracy and fraud are your values, then you should be sent to a country. If America is a nation of values, then we need to ruthlessly persecute people who do not share those values.
Yeah, no, I'm not disagreeing with any of that. I think that is a good point regarding people do get very pissed when they feel like their kindness and their empathy is being taken advantage of, when it's being weaponized against them. And I think arguing that as a reason why people are extra pissed about this, I think that's a pretty strong argument. It's a pretty emotive argument too, because the rhetoric is going to be a debate on which which emotions win out, and I think that is a very strong one.
How many degrees of separation are there between MDE and wants? That's going to be important. Like, how far down the chain are these people? And so I could have a claim where I said Tim Waltz didn't have an active enough, a sufficiently active role in preventing, in preventing fraud. So who's in charge of preventing this fraud? Right? That's this MDE group, and that's Sam Hyde, of course. And so the question is, how many degrees of who does Sam Hyde report to? And the people who chastise Sam Hyde, who do they report to? And ultimately, how many degrees of separation are there between the people between Sam Hyde and Tim Waltz at that point?
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to figure out. Are there any connections between these people? Did anybody clue Waltz in? Waltz had there's also the question of like, what legislation was responsible for securing what legislation was responsible for the obvious vulnerabilities in the system that permitted this fraud.
So just real quick,
Responsible for permitting fraud.
So just real quick, the Minnesota Department of Education is managed by the Commissioner of Education, which is appointed by the governor. So it's like 1 degree of separation. The issue is I don't know how connected that Commissioner of Education is to any potential investigation that's going on under him. I have no clue about that.
1 degree. Set by Tim Waltz. And then who are the people who chastise MDE? So the people who accuse them as early as something like 2018. Oh, here we go. Okay, so a June 2018 complaint alleged that Feeding Our Future's executive director had improperly, through acts of theft and forgery, taken control of the organization from the other founding members. MDE responded to the complaint that they should not provide further information to MDE about Feeding Our Future unless there is a conviction for any business-related offense or the organization is no longer in good standing with the IRS.
One other good
When I say I grew up in a socialist state, when I say I grew up in like a Soviet state, this is the shit I'm talking about.
Well, one point I would mention too is page 6 in the MDE report does specify between June 2018 and December 2021 the MD received at least 30 complaints involving Feeding Our Future or its sites. And by law, state agencies must properly investigate complaints received or irregularities noted in connection with CACFP and SFSP. I don't know what those are. That's page 6.
Page 6 of the report, right?
Of the PDF. I'm just looking at the PDF because the page of the report itself is S2. Yeah, just page 6.
Oh, shit. Okay, so before I get to that, MDE officials told us that the department did not investigate this allegation because it, one, notified law enforcement of the complaint and was told that no criminal investigation was forthcoming, and two, did not view the allegation as a program irregularity that it would be required to investigate under federal law. However, the subject of the complaint represented themselves as the board chair and president of Feeding Our Future, and given this role, they would be responsible for overseeing how the organization spent federal funds. They would also be responsible for addressing any deficiencies in the organization's operations. We find it difficult to understand why MDE did not consider an allegation that an individual improperly assumed key management responsibilities of a sponsoring organization to be a program irregularity worthy of investigation. On other occasions, they didn't investigate, even after its initial follow up with complainants revealed program. So, I'm going to speed read this. Conversations with two complainants, the MDE discovered one, the first complainant claimed they had never discussed CACFP with Feeding Our Future, but the site had been an approved CACFP site for 2 program years. The second complainant did not know that it had a pending CACFP site application. And 3, the second complainant was operating at a location that differed from the address listed in MDE system. What does that mean?
Second complainant was operating. I assume that means that the business in question was registered to a location that the business was not actually at.
At a location, it looks like they operated multiple sites.
Oh, your question of the multiple sites. Well, let me see. I'll have to look into Feeding Our Future itself.
Yeah. These sites, so they were sponsoring different sites, kind of like imagine a charity that sponsors food kitchens, for instance, right? But they don't
I'm
have.
thinking it's something like that, yeah.
First, I thought they meant website, which was silly of me. That was dumb of me. Minimum the irregularities. Feeding Our Future was responsible for submitting program applications on their behalf, training site staff to meet applicable program regulations, and maintaining records that support the site's meal claims and demonstrate the site's compliance with the law. So, Feeding Our Future was an intermediary responsible. We know that the fraud is easy to sneak through. So we have an intermediary organization that is responsible for ensuring compliance, and they don't. And this is apparently not. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying it's not particularly important, but to answer your question about what sites mean, it does sound like this is a Meals on Wheels sort of thing where they distribute food to specific locations. Um, this does sound like a Meals on Wheels type thing.
A different like food banks and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly.
Other than speaking with representatives of the sites, MDE took no additional investigative steps to ensure program compliance. The U.S. Department of Justice would later charge the first complainant in the alleged fraud scheme. So the first complainant claimed they had never discussed CACFP with Feeding Our Future, but the site had been an approved CACFP site for 2 program years. This is how fraud generally goes. Like, oh, I didn't do anything. Somebody at the bank made a mistake. I didn't evaluate this $50,000 property at $200,000 and then sell it to the other person for $50K and then split the mortgage. I didn't do anything like that. No, the bank made a mistake. One of the tellers are up to some fraud, maybe. Maybe that's what's going on. It's just a carousel of responsibility. And I think that maybe gets to the core of the issue here, is that if the I got maybe another maybe another 15 minutes left in me, and I think that this is going to be the core. The carousel of responsibility. You can never, for every single person, every rider leaving the ride points back and says, "You can't touch me until you get the people still on the ride."
Real quick, if you want something really damning, read page 64.
Page 64, and is that the
PDF.
page 64 on the PDF?
Yeah, I'm just using, when I say page whatever, I'm focusing solely on the PDF. That's easier to do.
And
So
it's listed as 56.
Yes, yes.
One, oversight of feeding our futures, in a different case in August 2021. That one.
Yep, yep.
In a different case in August 2021, MDE received conflicting reports of inappropriate or illegal behavior by Feeding Our Future, a site and a vendor specifically. One of Feeding Our Future's sites contacted MDE, alleging that Feeding Our Future had not paid its food vendor. I need different abbreviations for this. One of Asmongold's sites contacted Sam Hyde, alleging that Asmongold's had not, yeah, had not paid its Moist Critical. The Moist Critical told Sam Hyde that Asmongold had demanded a kickback, and when Moist Critical refused to pay, Asmongold canceled Moist Critical's contract in retaliation.
I don't think that's helping.
No, it's not. It's not. It might help if I was doing if it wasn't a live stream, maybe. I'm gonna do that thing where I mention Asmongold 37 times. We'll have like a scripted video where I mention him 37 times. According to the site, a new vendor, Feeding Our Future, assigned to the site, delivered an insufficient number of meals, many of which violated food safety and dietary requirements. That's my favorite thing when people talk about school lunches. I'm not concerned about the raw cost of school lunches, right? I'm not concerned about the cost of sandwiches. I'm concerned about expired sandwiches that cost $2 billion getting distributed to kids. In separate correspondence with MDE, Feeding Our Future stated that it wanted to take administrative action against the site for submitting fraudulent claims, soliciting a kickback from its former vendor, and making a false complaint to MDE about its new vendor, among other serious allegations. Rather than initiating a full independent investigation into Feeding Our Future or the site and vendors involved, MDE referred the sites and the site's original vendors' complaints to Feeding Our Future for resolution. Hey, these guys are saying that you're doing illegal shit. Can you confess for us? Because if you don't confess, then we're going to leave you alone.
The last paragraph is even better.
Uh-oh, oh boy. MDE told Feeding Our Future that it expected the organization to correct any program noncompliance or discontinue operations at that site if site staff were uncooperative. You guys fix it. You get back to us whenever you feel like it. We're troubled by MDE's decision to refer these complaints and alleged program irregularity back to Feeding Our Future for resolution rather than conducting its own independent investigation. In effect, MDE directed Feeding Our Future to investigate itself, including allegations of fraud at the site that should have been under the organization's full control. MDE made this decision roughly 4 months after sharing its fraud concerns about Feeding Our Future with the FBI. The U.S. Department of Justice later charged the executive director of the organization operating the site and the owners of both vendors named in the complaint in the alleged fraud scheme. The site operator pled guilty to criminal wire fraud charges on January 10th, 2024.
The big thing is that this controversy where they told Feeding Our Future to investigate itself, that happened 4 months after they were apparently concerned enough to contact the federal government finally. Even after that, they were like, oh, you can deal with it yourself, I guess. Never mind. That was the eye popping thing to me.
They themselves report or make a show of reporting to the FBI, and at the same time, they're talking out of both sides of their mouths, which is what people do when they're engaged in fraud.
Right, and I can only assume that if this was how they were treating Feeding Our Future still, I can only assume that their initial reports to the FBI were done in the same way that you would pull teeth.
I mean, would it be a stretch in your opinion to say these people are basically they're reporting to the FBI probably because at this point they feel like they have to because they're still not doing anything, but in that process saying, "Hey, this deserves a criminal investigation," immediately refer the contents of that investigation back to the people being charged or the people under suspicion, saying, "Hey, by the
I
way."
I think, and this is just intuiting based off of everything I've read so far. I think it was a situation where if MDE let this go on as far as they did, then they would have. Sorry, hold on a second. Sorry, I had to clear my throat. I think the
No worries.
situation is I'm intuiting based off of everything that I've read so far, but it sounds like if uh, if the Department of Education, the Minnesota Department of Education, uh, let this continue on any more than it did, then they would be facing like criminal investigations themselves, just due to the sheer incompetence, like compounding to the point where it's like, okay, at what point are you incompetent, and at what point are you an active participant? I think it was that they knew they couldn't go on any further without facing legal trouble themselves. I'm just intuiting that. That's just a guess. What do you think about that?
Can't assert with absolute certainty that they were letting people know that they were letting the subjects of this fraud scheme know that they were like going too far or being too obvious about it. Can't say that for certain. Can't say for certain that they were let in on
Right.
details about their about what information that they had given to the FBI.
I think they contacted the FBI solely as a matter of liability.
Like cover your
Where it's like,
ass.
okay, yeah, exactly. That's what I was trying to get to.
Yeah.
So to the extent that they contact the FBI and then continue doing nothing, I think that matches with an organization that still doesn't care and is just letting the FBI know because they realized at that point they would have to, or else they would get in trouble. I think that was what was going on. Again, can't be for certain. I'm intuiting it, but I think that's a fair takeaway.
When they decided to investigate, the investigations were inadequate, so they received at least three separate complaints from a sponsor alleging that FOF was inappropriately recruiting at sites. What does that mean? Identified a specific FOF staff person who they alleged was improperly recruiting at sites and said the improper recruiting was taking place at meetings of a specific child care provider association. In response to the
Nice.
complaints, Feeding Our Future did not deny that the staff person was at the complainant sites or that the staff person had attended the meeting of a Child Care Provider Association. However, they never attempted to contact this individual or anyone representing the named Child Care Provider Association. Instead, they relied primarily on FOF's statements and documentation completed by its sites, transferring to FOF sponsorship to determine that the complaints were unsubstantiated.
What page is this?
This is page 65.
Okay, keep that page in mind, actually, because that sounds very important when the conversation inevitably steers to child daycare centers.
What child care center is named? Which one is that?
I don't know. That might not be something revealed to the public. I was gonna make a joke, by the way, about the FOF recruiting kids. I was gonna be like, "Hey, you want to hang out at our daycare center for a bit? We kind of need you for a moment," and that's what it was. That's actually what it was. I was gonna joke, and then they just did it.
No, they actually, truth is funnier than fiction. That's the lesser known idiom.
Yeah, but keep that page in mind. That sounds like a very important page to remember when that conversation steers to daycare stuff. Because it would be bad to just say, I'm not interested in talking about the daycare stuff.
Yeah, because people are going to hammer it and say like, "Oh, well, you're distracting from the real problem." It's like, no, that's you. You projecting
Right.
motherfucker. You subhuman piece of shit.
I didn't even know about the daycare stuff within this report. That's new to me.
The way fraud typically works is it's interlinked. So here's an example. Matthew Cox was arrested for something like $300 million worth of fraud. Or sorry, no, $55 million worth of fraud.
I'm sorry.
Little off.
Just
go ahead.
Quick. The PDF, that was page 65 on the PDF or page 65 on the document?
It's not the page number 65. So if you're using your browser, your PDF reader will say page 65.
Okay, yep, so I'm on the right page. Okay. Sorry, go ahead. You're talking about Matthew Cox?
No worries. This fellow Matthew Cox, the way he got around it is the way fraud works is you just have a network of people who are in some way benefiting and can cover for one another and constantly bounce responsibility back and forth, right? So somebody calls you to check to see you are getting paid as like a mortgage broker, right? And somebody needs $60,000 a year in order to qualify for their loan. And they get the loan, but they only make $55K a year. Well, what you do is you say, well, I'm going to change your pay stubs, and I'm going to change your pay stubs, and I'm going to change your bank records and statements and stuff like that. And I'm going to submit those to the bank and say that you do in fact make $60,000 a year. Now, if either of you get called on this claim to prove it, what you do is you just bounce it to the other person, where they say, oh, well, I had a low month, but they reviewed it. Hey, you could check back in with my broker who's here. They check back in with the broker and they say, yeah, no, we did review it. Well, I didn't review it personally, but I did sign off on it. And I did check these other records, and I do have other assets that bring it up to $60K. But I'm not sure if all those have been reported to the IRS just yet. But here, if you need more specifics, I'll sign off on it, but if you need more specifics, then you can call my assistant at this number, because he's the one who actually went through the document entirely. I just signed off on it, right? He went through the document in its entirety. And so you just have a bunch of people calling. Eventually, whoever's checking in either has a stick up their ass, in which case you get found out, possibly, or they get lazy, or they're on the take at some point, right? The bank finds out that you did, in fact, you sold this home for that was worth 50K. You you paid someone to evaluate it at like 200,000, and they're both in the same neighborhood. So all of a sudden, all property values are shooting up in this one neighborhood, even though you haven't managed to flip all of them. The person gets 50,000 a house for only $50,000. You sell it to them for way cheaper, but you get the mortgage money, or you split it with them in some way. And eventually, maybe the bank finds out. And if the bank finds out and says, we're going to report you to the FBI, it's like, well, listen, buddy, you get like you're sitting on $150,000 of debt if this goes through. If you report me, it's a $50,000 home. It's not 200K. If what you're saying about me is correct, why don't I just give you 150K back? Like, don't call the feds. What's the point? You're not gonna and leave yourself with a bunch of debt. I disagree with you. I disagree that this is actually fraud. I disagree that you have the right to call the feds. Let me just make this right, because otherwise we're all going to be screwed over. You digging deeper is going to screw all of us over, and that doesn't necessarily have to be the case, but it has to be convincing enough. If you have a web of people for whom that is convincing enough, rest. And that's it. There's no solving it. And so that's why fraud is, we have a high legal standard for proving fraud. But in fact, like the moral standard for fraud, or the standard for suspicion of fraud, is actually pretty fucking low. If you're not keeping up to date with your records, if you are bouncing people back and forth between assistants who all affirm that there's nothing shady going on, but are never able to provide you with the proper documentation to assure you that nothing bad is going on, and the investigators, for whatever reason, never actually never dig deeper, then there's fraud. Almost certainly. Damn. So no specific, they keep saying, well, public reporting related context suggests the complaining sponsor was likely Partners in Quality Care, also known as Partners in Nutrition, a rival sponsor that had a prior connection to Feeding Our Future. The OLA report itself does not name it or any specific daycare or association. They don't recruit to a specific daycare center, but recruit. Can you make a few educated guesses or provide me a list with them kids? Give me a list of them kids. What do you think about the subtle accusations of of Nick Shirley's inappropriate interest in kids?
I mean, it's funny, but it's also bullshit.
Yeah, it's obviously bullshit. It's a good thing that nobody ever spent it's a good thing nobody ever spent like a decade freaking out, like calling everybody pedophiles.
Yeah, man.
Such that the term, that it could be used against anybody. It's a good thing that accusation still holds some serious weight, or else you could just throw it at some random 20-year-old.
I actually, and this is kind of something you can only ever do once per person. It's so fun just randomly accusing people of pedophiles.
Like yeah, no, it is funny.
Someone, yeah, I'm having a debate with someone. It's like, okay, well, you're a fucking pedophile, you dude. And it's like you can do it once, and it's over. But it's so funny if you can do it. I have never actually seen that Nick Shirley video, entirely because I don't need to. Everything that's in it is like, from as far as I've been told, sounds like stuff that can be faked. And again, the countervailing evidence for Nick Shirley's accusations don't seem to be there either. It just seems to be wash, and if it's a wash where anyone can lie and it's just like whatever, I don't give a
I will
shit.
say that they were sloppily done, right? They were
Yeah.
sloppily done in a way that offered cover to people. Like if you say that there's no kids, it's like, well, no kids isn't the standard for fraud. Question is whether you're claiming reimbursement for more kids that you're actually taking in. And this was a common practice according to investigators because they staked out these places. The books were cooked, obviously, so they had to stake out these places over months and just compare notes until the fraud was like so high that it was like really, really impossible to ignore. It's like, dude, you're claiming there's like um the mom works here and she's got like a half a dozen kids, but you're claiming there's like 30 of them in here. And we watched just like her get there with her kids. And like, so
Where are
this
you?
is obviously horseshit.
Where are you getting this information? Because they're gonna ask the same thing.
Yep, no, that is correct. So I'm going to recommend watching JSTLK's or JStalk's video covering. If you on YouTube, you can look up Ryle Kittenhouse. That's the clip. I believe that's the clip channel for JStalk.
But
I
are
like
your
that
debate?
guy.
Well, are your debate? He's pretty good. But I would say, are is your debate opponents
No,
gonna
I need
accept
the
you to go
specific
watch
claim. No, I need
J
the
Stock?
specific claim. Obviously, absolutely.
Yeah, that's the thing. They're not gonna accept to go watch J Stock. But that is important. If you can find like the first source piece of information to those claims, that'll be very helpful.
They work. I'm going to ask Grok for links, and I'm going to read
I
the
was
links obviously because Google is completely fucked.
I Grok and ChatGPT are both pretty good. I happen to use ChatGPT more than Grok,
Mhm.
but they're pretty aligned. Google Gemini sucks ass, dude.
Really?
It's so bad. It's you know how like conservative boomers who fall for anything will say, "Oh yeah, AI is just woke. It's just totally paused. You know, you can't trust it because it's that way."
Sure.
That's not true for most AI site. Most LLMs. Grok is pretty good. ChatGPT is pretty good. I don't know about Claude. Google Gemini is like so buck broken that it's difficult to use just for non political information.
I can believe that.
Which it's ironic because their image generation is the best. I don't know how you feel about image generation from AI specifically, but if you
I
like it,
normally hate it at this point.
yeah, no, I don't blame you.
It'll work. No, it's
There was something. Let me see if I can
I gotta fix that. Like I said, investigators take out daycare centers. I know I can't trust it because if I get like I will get a list of daycare centers that were engaged in fraud and I'll ask them, give me a list of daycare centers that were like suspected fraud. It's like there's no daycare centers involved in fraud. It's like, bro, you gave me a list earlier. It's like, okay, the training data has been updated in some way. So I always have to go through the links, and I still have that Hiclib Palantir um, for mulching data. Well, technically, it's two programs.
Are you able with the Palantir thing? Are you able to add text bubbles to like bullet point specific information that might not fit the categories you're wanting to make?
Yes, I think if understand what you mean correctly.
Like, can you add like your own text that's outside of the categories you can make that connects different people?
I believe so. That'd be really easy to add if it's not in there. Again, if I'm understanding you correctly.
I might not be explaining it well.
There it is. It's just constantly getting errors for fucking sources.
Sent you a little something in DMs.
I hate that. Oh, I hate it so much. I do look forward to manufacturing shittier RAM sticks at home.
That'd be neat. Like 3D printed RAM.
It's more like CNC milled, which is not going to get you amazing results, to be clear, because you need like a you need basically a photolithography, I think.
Oh, you're talking about shit you can do now. Okay. Huh. I didn't know
They
that.
have CNC machines nowadays that are pretty
Right.
that have, you know, 0.005 millimeter tolerance or point was it like five? No, I think it's like 5 micron tolerance. I think what you need is like 1 micron tolerance for like the amount of shit that we get up to, but you're not gonna CNC milling still doesn't work for that for 1 micron tolerance, even if you get down that far, because you can't do layers at that point. But shit, the Chinese had access to computers and computing technology, despite the fact that they were overall technologically underdeveloped and didn't have the industry to produce the same kind of computers that we were using. Because if you know that something's possible, but you have a bunch of resource constraints, there's usually a way to get around that. There's usually a way to get around your resource constraints. It's just going to be less efficient, or there's going to be a greater rate of errors or something like that. But it doesn't mean it's impossible.
You
Investigators
see,
placed hidden. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
oh no, I was just gonna say, you see, I only know CNC mills to the extent that they can be used to make homemade self-defense weapons. I don't know anything else about them.
You could use 3D printers for that. Well, if you use both, then you could have a really fun time.
Yeah, from my understanding, it is best to have a CNC mill for that, but I'll stop talking about that. Sorry, what were you saying?
Minneapolis. They're good.
Something.
So I'm reading this document, but I need sources. I need sources that tell me about the surveillance, specifically first party.
This is actually something I prefer ChatGPT to Grok more. ChatGPT, especially when you ask it to, but usually not even that, they'll list sources at the end of the paragraph where they make claims, and they won't give you like 50 fucking sources at the bottom for you to like sift through to find what the hell it's talking about. So that's very convenient for ChatGPT if you use that.
Oh, they do it like mid paragraph. That is true. Like that, even though I have to get rid of ChatGPT
It
soon.
the pro is that you don't have to sift through like 50 sources to talk about
Yeah,
to find
50
what it's
links at the
actually
bottom to
talking
figure
about.
out which one like they're actually talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
Fucking finally. All right, thank you, Claude Code. Claude, please fix. That's the only thing I use.
Is Claude good with coding?
It's better than Replit. A lot of my coding is just understanding architecture and then screaming at basically whipping this computer slave to do my bidding. when I don't feel when I'm being like really lazy and typing. I work really well when I have like a whipping boy. Like if when I have a freelancer, if I'm working with them, I'm usually asking them questions and be like, "Oh, that's a stupid idea." But it's reminded me, but the intense, as I think on the stupidity of your idea for that would never work for this product, I realize now what the correct solution is.
Am I that role here?
No, no, you're Mirosi, remember?
Yes, I do remember. I still need you to get to watching Son of the Century. That's such a good show. I mentioned it
Son
like
of the
once months
century.
ago. I mentioned it once months ago. I have no clue if you find it interesting, but it's a very well made t- TV series about Mussolini and his rise to power. Highly
That would
recommend.
be interesting.
And it does have Cesarino Rossi in it.
Like I know very little about Mussolini. I know very little about Franco. I know nothing about like what Portugal was doing at the time. Like there's entire sections of my memory that are just or my historical knowledge of that era is basically like somebody took an axe to it once you get below Spain, right?
Well, I mean, it's all is Hitler, right? Once when you get to that point in European history, that surface level, all is Hitler. Nothing else is not Hitler.
I know a little bit about the post-war just because I went to Poland and
Oh, cool.
Gdańsk has this incredibly beautiful but brutalist memorial to the Pope's visit behind the Iron Curtain and the brutality that the Polish people faced afterwards.
I don't mind brutalism. I think you can get a little abstract with it, and it starts to look
Mm.
stupid. Like if you, I'm sure you've seen Yugoslav brutalism, and how
Oh, yes.
their monuments look like fucking Tie fighters and shit.
That yeah, no, like a brutalist cross is like it's cool. It's because it's
Yeah,
the you could take it's like shitty fonts, right? You could take something shitty like Comic Sans, and you can. This is a Sam Hyde bit, I guess, but you can elevate it, and you can take like a really popular, cool, like Helvetica or pick your favorite sci-fi font, and just turn that into something that's you could place it, you could make a form, introduce it to a form that's just displeasing to the eye for everybody, maybe for every font.
yeah, I agree. That's very true for architecture. I don't know if there's an architecture style that I just say entirely is bad. There's like a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it, I find.
FBI court affidavits. It's, this is the shitty thing. They just constantly. Okay, wait. Okay, well, for son, 2015 footage shows parents allegedly subscribe to continue reading this article. Oh, son, jeez.
Well, I'm sure you know how to use archive, right?
No,
Of
no, actually, I
shows.
don't.
Oh shit. Well, link me it.
But like this is this. Thank you so much.
It's fine.
This is so much better than playing video games.
Oh yeah, investigating.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. I'm glad that I worked my ass off for like the past year to like build a bunch of tools for this shit to actually start. I think the way I'm going to separate gaming content from everything else is probably like I guess posting Substacks based on the stuff that I get from Ghost Wheel.
Let's go
Gives
through.
me all of my review data. Oh, there's a little bit. That's one half of Hicklib Palantir.
No. Give me a minute. I'm evidently the first one archiving this page you sent me, so it's going to be a minute because that's usually how it works. I'll link you the actual archiving page though. Usually someone else has archived it before you, so it takes like 1 second. But if it doesn't, it takes like a minute.
I added a backend database so I could actually like keep things persistent for this, and I wrote a bunch of code at the same time, which was a little annoying. But that's okay.
Oh, is Ghost Wheel the engine or something?
So there's two. There's Ghost Wheel and then there's Merlin. And Ghost Wheel is the one that goes out and Ghost Wheel is the one that goes out and they're kind of iterative. So Ghost Wheel goes out and grabs a bunch of the primary source documents and adds them to a GitHub repository. And then Merlin takes that and basically Merlin is basically like an advanced indexing service where it says, okay, now that you've given me the raw text of all these different documents, here are all the references that come up. Here are all the connections between these different locations and such. And then that gets passed back to passed back to Ghost Wheel for connections and things like that. So basically,
Okay, so-
Ghost Wheel does like a raw extraction. Merlin
So it's a
refines
scraper,
it.
basically.
Yeah, it's a scraper, but it does the raw extraction. Merlin refines it, sends it back to Ghost Wheel, and then Ghost Wheel does a repeats that extraction process on the refined material.
Okay, I think I understand. So let's see.
It didn't ultimately. It didn't need to be designed as like two separate programs. It was just easier to build that way. It was easier for me to like plan it out that way and build it.
Yeah. So here is the archive of that.
Beautiful. I'm gonna have to read that later, so I got to get ready for work here because like it starts in. I had to leave probably in 10 minutes to get there on time. But thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I hope you enjoy the show tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll definitely be watching. I probably won't watch it live because I tend not to watch live shows. I don't
Oh,
know
how
why.
dare you.
I just like pausing and doing shit. But I will definitely watch it and I will look forward to watching it. I will also link you the archive site that I use. It's super easy to use. You just copy paste a link and you're good. But yeah, man.
Beautiful.
I'll talk to you soon.
Yes, sir.
Bye.
All right, and I'll see you everybody else as well.